Happy Halloween! And welcome back to Interpreting the Scares. That's right, we're on the last film review of the day, and surprise, surprise, it's actually gonna be a double feature review where I'm talking about not one, but two movies, specifically The Thing and its remake that was made almost 30 years later. And there's actually a reason for this, so let's get cracking. So the storyline that's featured in both The Thing and its remake in 2011 are essentially the same thing. A group of scientists make a grand discovery in Antarctica, which is basically a UFO that houses a weird but seemingly dead alien. But they soon discover that this alien isn't fully as dead as they once thought, and it's taking over their bodies. It's turning into a body snatcher situation. So they're unable to trust everybody around them is indeed human, because they could potentially be one of these aliens that's possibly trying to take over the world. Instead, they kind of have to use their wits. They have to use their scientific knowledge to figure out how to determine if it's alien or if it's human. So we did it! We did it! We did it, guys! Did it, guys! We did it! We did it, guys! It's Halloween! We did it, guys! It's Halloween. I mean, I already said that twice before in my other reviews, but since this is the last review of the day, I thought it prudent to remind everybody that it is still Halloween. This movie, I never saw before. Either version. I've heard it talked about a lot because a lot of folks consider it to be one of the best horror films ever made that was never given a sequel. And when I watched the movie, I mean, that makes sense because it seems to be the type of movie that would get a sequel. In the same way as, say, Alien or Predator or whatever, because it's the same idea. You got this alien creature that's attacking everybody in a scenario where you can't really run away. It's also in a scenario that if you scream, nobody's gonna really hear you because you're kind of in the middle of nowhere. That alone is scary, and it helps me understand how big of a thing this movie really was. But there's also a reason why I watched both versions. Not because I loved the first one and I had to see how they remade it. It's actually quite the opposite, because I kind of was not very enthusiastic about the first movie. I wasn't that engaged with it. It didn't shock me, it didn't surprise me. Nothing about it seemed all that different from anything else I've seen. And I couldn't really believe the idea that they were in Antarctica because it was made in the 80s, so they had to use what they could use at the time. I mean, some of that was corny because you got, Kurt Russell in the film, who in Antarctica, in the weather that you find in Antarctica, he's walking around with a cowboy hat. Come on. So again, part of it was I couldn't really believe that they were in Antarctica. I couldn't really believe that it was as cold as it was supposed to be. So that did kind of take me out of it. And I guess a part of it is that I didn't watch it in the right decade. I mean, I watched this in 2022 when some things just weren't as aged as well as they could have been, and I'm guessing since this movie came out, a lot of people have tried to kind of mimic the same thing, and so I've seen those things. So when I watched this, it was like, I'm not as surprised as I thought I would be with this film. Another reason why I watched the remake was because there were certain moments when I watched this movie where I thought to myself, they could actually benefit from modern technology because in the 80s there really were certain things that they couldn't do. And what did I think about the remake? Now this might be a little bit blasphemy, but I actually liked it better than the original, but only by slight. When you look at my end scores, you'll see that they're actually pretty close when it comes down to my overall score. It's just that the remake made a little bit more sense all around, because in the original film, you have Norwegian scientists, you got American scientists. They're not working together. They just kind of run into each other, kind of random-like. And in the remake, they're working together. So the Norwegians make the discovery of the alien, and then they call the Americans to help. So they're all kind of working as one team. And to me, that made a little bit more sense. Also, I thought that the performances in the remake were a little bit more natural, and they felt more real. They didn't always feel, however, like it was supposed to take place in 1982, which it was. It was supposed to take place the same year that the original film came out. One of the main differences that you'll find with the OG and the remake is that the OG used a lot of practical effects and creature design. Whatever you saw in that movie, it was actually there. It was physically there. The remake used a lot of CGI, as you would probably imagine it to do in 2011. The CGI was not terrible. I was kind of expecting worse from it, but they utilized the CGI to their advantage, and they kept a lot of stuff in the dark. They made sure that if it was really up close, a lot of that was practical. So I appreciated the visuals of the remake, actually, but I prefer the look of the creature design in the original, as that was practical, even though sometimes it kind of looked goofy. Another thing that I liked more in the original was the idea of cabin fever. That came off a lot more psychological in the original than in the remake. The remake, I didn't feel that cabin fever sensation like at all. It was just a basic sci-fi survival story, not unlike Alien. But the original, it felt a lot more psychological in what it was doing. So even though there was a physical alien in Antarctica that was indeed a threat, so were the humans. The humans were because they were afraid, and they would kill each other because of how afraid they are. Now that's psychological, that's cabin fever. It really ups the ante in this sensation that there's no way out of this predicament. But on the other side of that, I actually believe that the scientists in the remake were in Antarctica. A part of that has to do with the exterior shots and the snow actually feeling like it was snow instead of something fake. Like the original felt more like they were standing in flour or something like that, but the remake felt like they were legitimately in Antarctica, or at least a cold climate. Because even though I believe the climate was very, very cold, I didn't think it was as cold as Antarctica because of what they were wearing. The problem when it comes down to Hollywood placing actors in a cold climate is we need to see their face, right? We need to see as much of them as humanly possible. So, give them a hat, give them a nice jacket, but other than that, they can roam around freely. No. If you're in Antarctica, you know what I'm talking about. You're gonna be in a big fat coat, a big fat hat and hood, glasses and a scarf, and you're gonna be hidden. Nobody's gonna know who's playing what if it was actually in Antarctica, because otherwise you're gonna freeze to death, okay? So in neither scenario do I believe that the actors or the characters are actually in Antarctica, but out of the two, I believed the remake was a colder filming situation, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Unfortunately though, neither film do I consider great. They're both average at best. They are completely mediocre. There is no reason why I think this should be the movie that I'm ending the month on. There's so many others that I watched this month that I prefer over The Thing. I actually think the last movie that I should have watched this month was Arachnophobia. Even though that was rated PG, I considered it to be effectively scary. I consider it to be something that probably crawled under my skin the most out of everything else. A part of that is just how creepy crawly that film is. A part of that is how amazing the work was done behind the scenes. I really appreciated that film, but it was one of my favorite experiences all month, even though it also wasn't the highest rated that I gave it all month. The Thing, I was looking forward to it because everybody everywhere considered it to be one of the best horror films like ever made, and I don't see why. In 1982, sure, maybe. In 2022, 40 years later, I've seen better. I mean, maybe you guys disagree with me, and if you do, let me know, and let me know what you do love about it, because I'm interested to hear about that. But for me, what I rated The Thing was a C+ letter grade, final overall score of 68%, 68 out of 100 possible stars. You can see from my unbiased score that that's rated higher, mostly because of, the practical effects that you do find in there, the psychological nature of the film, and overall it is a classic. You watch it, you're like, yes, this is definitely a classic. I can see why some people really do enjoy it, because when it comes down to classics, you gotta at least appreciate it, When it comes down to the remake, I scored that a B- letter grade, final overall score of 72%, 72 out of 100 possible stars, and you can see from my unbiased and biased score on this one, it's a little bit different, because my higher score here is in the bias section, and the unbiased section is actually lower than the original film. So it's a catch-22. It really is. It completely depends on who you are. A lot of people won't like the remake because they just hate remakes in general. So I would understand them not liking the remake for that reason. But for me, it's a 4% difference. That's it overall. That's how close they are for me. Kind of a bummer honestly, to end the month on a low note like this, but that's always the possibility. I'm not always destined to love everything that I watch, and it is what it is. Guys, have you seen The Thing? Of course you have, you probably have. So let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come up with my next review. And until then, happy Halloween, and I'll see you next time. Peace out!